Hi, this is Steve Babb of Glass Hammer. You're listening to Morow.com, the Prog Radio.
Hi, this is Fred Schendel from Glass Hammer, and you're listening to Morow.com, the Prog Radio.
Morow.com.
Why did you release a new album so fast, as the album One also dates from 2011? Well, the album One is an anniversary release of a recording Fred and I did in 1991 and 92. Does that sound right?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
So about 20 years ago. And it was never released under the name Glass Hammer, and it stayed hidden in the vaults for many, many years, and we pulled it out last year on its anniversary and released it only from our website. It's not something that distributors have or something you'd find on Amazon, or I don't even think it's on iTunes, so it's a strictly an exclusive release from our website that documents our very first recordings. Question 2. The title Cor Cordium, which is Latin for Heart of Hearts, is rather mysterious. Could you elaborate on the title, please? Well, you're right that it's mysterious, and that's part of the reason that I think it appealed to us. We looked at the artwork that was coming together for the album, and Cor Cordium just sounded like something that fit that image. But it means Heart of Hearts. It is, or was, an epitaph that was written for Percy Shelley, which was a 19th century poet. So it also functions as a title that kind of sums up at least a couple of the songs on the album, which are epitaphs, and that is the song One Heart, which is the second track, and a longer song called Dear Daddy. Both of these are epitaphs. So I hope that answers that and clears up some of the mystery. Question 3. Obviously, your music is inspired by Yes, which I like very much, but does it not bother you that some reviewers always compare Glass Hammer with that notorious symphonic rock band?
It only bothers us if they seem incapable of looking any further than that. It seems such an oversimplification of the situation. Yes is a very definite influence. It's certainly only one of quite a few rather diverse influences that we have, and that I think have been in our sound from the beginning. And I think the reason that people are really making more of a Yes comparison right now is because of the nature of the lead vocals on the last two albums.
You know, I think we've said it before. It's comparing us to one band or the other, I understand why that has to be done. You have to compare it to something in a review or an interview. Or if you're trying to describe a band's sound, you kind of have to have some sort of reference point. And Yes, and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and all those early symphonic bands are great comparisons. But if you go one step further and say that Glass Hammer has become a clone of Yes, I think that borders on preposterous. So that would bother me, because that's surely not our intention. And I think Fred's pointed out, and I'll let you elaborate on that. I think you said something about, if you put one album, a Yes album, up against a Glass Hammer album. Yeah.
They're not going to sound like each other. I don't think one would be mistaken for the other. We really do like early Yes enough that occasionally we do enjoy taking kind of the algorithm, I guess, of that sound and incorporating strands of it into what we do. And I think we feel that since Yes, the band, doesn't really necessarily sound like classic Yes anymore, that it's not necessarily a bad thing for people like us and Wobbler and some other bands to come along and emulate that sound a little bit, because we like to hear it. Hopefully we retain our own identity through what we do, even though we like to show our influences from time to time. There.
The first Glass Hammer album dates from 1993. How has the band evolved since then? Well, I read the other day that on a progressive rock forum that our early albums were classified as neo-prog, which I agree in part, I guess. So we had a different approach to how we did things back then. And certainly there were personnel changes.
Yeah, there's really been only kind of a solid lineup as far as a band for a couple periods in the 2000s. Before that, it was really Steve and I and session musicians to a large extent. Although Walter Moore was kind of a constant during the earlier years as a singer, vocalist, and occasional drummer even. I mean, a vocalist, a guitarist, and occasionally a drummer.
We took a definite symphonic turn around the year 2000 with chronometry. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. And we there were almost, dare I say it, more AOR leanings, I think, in the early days. And we had graced more of a traditional prog sound. We've been drifting more and more towards analog instruments and more of a 70s kind of vibe, I think, from chronometry onwards. But at this point, I think we've definitely locked in with a solid band lineup that we hope to keep for a while. Things working out very well. We're sharing the writing and arranging more in this version of the band than we have previously.
How is the progressive rock scene in the USA at this moment?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you consider a scene. There are certainly a lot of good bands to come out of the U.S. You've got us and Spock's Beard and Discipline and a bunch of smaller kind of bands on the jazz prog front, Muffins and lots of little REO kind of undergroundish bands that we don't even know that much about that are certainly very good. But if we're talking about success in terms of worldwide recognition and album sales, well, the internet kind of brings us all together, doesn't it?
It's just one big world.
And in terms of live performance, it's tough for everybody. There's only a couple bands that can get out and do mini tours with any guarantee of success.
It seems the excitement builds up around, a small number of festivals.
Right.
And I mean a very small number. And if you consider that the most those festivals can hold are between 400 and maybe 1,500 people.
Well, that's probably one or two of the mega festivals. The smaller ones all clock into 300 and less.
Right. So, you're talking about a few thousand people or a few hundred that travel, and some of those people are coming from Europe.
Yeah.
And they come and they see a big festivals here, or these medium-sized festivals. Of course, Nearfest last year, the biggest one, canceled. There's numerous theories as to why. I have my own, but they're gearing up for a really, really big final Nearfest this year, which will make a lot of news or a lot of headlines, but still, it's only going to hold so many people. So I'd say the scene is relatively small. It's certainly healthier than it was when we first started.
Yeah, very much so.
But that's still primarily done via the internet.
But the fact there are gigs at all is a good sign, and there are some younger bands like District 97, I guess there's Mars Hollow, that are actually out gigging on a pretty regular basis and going to clubs and getting people to come to see them. So
yeah,
that's good.
There's a younger audience now. I mean, we've seen that kind of develop even since the 90s, that there was always this kind of small group of 20-somethings that kind of followed the genre. And I think that's probably grown too. So you still have the old guys that grew up listening to prog, and then I think there's a new, reasonably healthy audience that's in their 20s, maybe even a little younger. How long did you work on the new album?
About a year, maybe. And that's not constant work. And we have a tendency to put some time into it, and then we have to go off and run the studio and kind of do the day job thing, and then we'll get back together. With John living on the other side of the country, his window of opportunity was limited as far as coming and doing vocals. But in terms of the actual work that went into it, maybe 3 months?
There were a few weeks in June and July, I suppose, where work really intensified. John was here. Alan was trying to finish up his parts. I spent a lot of time on bass. And then Fred and I began to mix. So there were a few weeks where things got really hard for us, or intense, I should say. But it spans the course of months, I guess. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, all in all, we probably work about a year, but an intense period of a few weeks is where it all sort of comes together.